Hey everyone, welcome to an NFL video. In this one we're going over who I believe is going to be chalk for week 5 of the NFL season on Draftkings. Now this isn't a video of me going over my favorite plays of the week, although I do like most of these guys. It's just me telling you who's going to be high owned, and then you can leverage that whichever way you want. Maybe you want to go all in on these guys for cash games, or maybe you want to fade them in GPPs. That's totally up to you. It's just me telling you who's going to be high owned, and I'll give some background knowledge on each of the guys we're going to talk about, and we'll go from there. And before we continue, if you could leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And if you're interested in any of the spreadsheets I build every single week, links in the description below for my Patreon. And I'm sorry if my voice sounds annoying. This is not my normal voice. I cannot breathe that through my nose whatsoever, and I had a sore throat the other day, so voice hurts. Can't breathe through my nose, but hopefully I don't sound too bad. So anyway, let's get into this video. So, chalk quarterback number 1 that I want to talk about. It's DeShaun Watson at 6,700. I know he's really expensive, but I think he's going to garner a lot of ownership. But there's a lot of talk about him this week. He ranks out as pretty much everyone's number 1 quarterback in terms of projections. I know he does in mine. So it makes a ton of sense going up against Atlanta. It's the highest total of the slate at 50 points. He has a 27-point team total for the Texans. He has rushing upside as well, which helps boost his floor and ceiling. He has 3 rushing touchdowns on the season. Has been fumbling the ball a lot though, but unfortunately, only lost 2 of those. But still. He's got Hopkins and Fuller to throw to, which are excellent weapons. You know, Hopkins arguably the best wide receiver in the game, and Fuller is a burner, and they got great connection as well. The downside here is his offensive line, and they suck. Okay, they're really prohibiting this offense, and Watson is on pace to be just 4 shy of the NFL sack record this season. This is hurting their down the field passing game the most, really. So kind of a reason why that Fuller and them might not be really connecting as good as they used to. Or not used to, I guess, yeah, recently, last 2 seasons. But this might not be too big of a deal this week, though, as the Falcons are not generating much pressure versus quarterbacks this season, as they are 26th in adjusted sack rate. So if Watson has time to throw the ball against the secondary, especially missing Keanu Neal, I think they're in for a huge game offensively. Hopefully hook up with Fuller a few times, and I think you're in for a big Deshaun Watson game. Could be one of his more ceiling games of as you saw week 1 and week 3, where he scored 31 points and 19 points, then had 2 clunkers versus Jacksonville, Carolina with 12 points each. So I think you're going to see him on more of the ceiling side for going up against Atlanta at home. Then next I want to talk about who I think is going to be high owned is Kyler Murray at 6,300. This is the second highest total on the slate. Well, it's tied with the Tampa Bay and Saints game, but still pretty high total at 47.5. 2 bad defenses and should play at a pretty high pace. They're a high passing volume offense. They're throwing the ball over 40 times per game on average. Rushing upside as well to boost his floor. And he's been very solid this season. He has not burned you whatsoever. He's had 25 points week 1, 19 points week 2, 19 points week 3, 17 points week 4. None of those games kill you. And even games he hasn't had a passing touchdown, which has been twice, he's been fine. He still scored 19 points and 17 points in those games. He's got the rushing ability, helps boost his floor. Finally got a rushing touchdown last week, which kind of saved his day because he did not have a passing touchdown at 241 yards. But he should be able to get the job done here. And he's going up against Cincinnati, who's just not a very good offense whatsoever. Since his defense is very below average, their passing numbers don't look as bad because teams tend to run on them because they have an awful run defense, but it's a very beatable secondary, and Kyler Murray should be fine. He's going to be pretty high owned. And honorable mentions for the quarterback position that are going to be high owned: Jameis Winston versus New Orleans, Wentz versus the Jets, and then Dalton versus the Cardinals. Although Dalton became less popular throughout the week with the loss of John Ross, because he was a big part of Dalton's success because he's a burner, he can make big plays happen. So he did take a hit, but I do think people will still be on Dalton because they're just going to look at the matchup versus Arizona, and plus Draftkings is showing you a big green 31st here. And if a lot of people don't do advanced research, they're going to be like, all right, rolling on Andy Dalton, which I don't hate him this week, but he's cheap going against Arizona, which makes pretty much everyone look good. So I guess he would make sense to be a little bit high owned. Now to the running back position, it's I've said it like 3 times this week, but it's loaded. I mean, we got everybody on this slate: McCaffrey, Kamara, Cook, Elliott. Barkley's not playing, but David Johnson, Melvin Gordon, Le'Veon Bell, Austin Eckler, Leonard Fournette, Mark Ingram. It's loaded. You can't go wrong with pretty much any of these guys. I do think the highest owned guy, I mean, they're going to be close, but Christian McCaffrey, I think it's pretty easy to get him in this week. There's a ton of value at the wide receiver position and tight end and defense this week. And McCaffrey is pretty much RB1 this season. I mean, I'm not saying he's an RB1 like a top 10 guy, but he's like the RB1. He's pretty much the safest play every single week. Now, this is a tough matchup versus Jacksonville, only allowing 18 points per game to running backs this season. But on the other hand, they're also 23rd DVOA versus running backs, and they've really struggled with the power run this season, which is what Carolina does a ton. And I didn't put him in my core play video, which I kind of wish I did. I was originally under the assumption I wasn't going to be able to afford him, but with some of the value that's really opened up, and I'm kind of leaning towards all these value guys, I've been able to find myself to really be able to fit in Christian McCaffrey this week. So I kind of regret not putting him in my core plays video, but just pretend I did as of right now. So yeah, we love his elite volume. He's coming off a career high 37, or was it 38, 37 touch outing versus Houston last week, which is absolutely insane. No one does that in this era anymore. The offense runs through him, and he will never be schemed out with his involvement through the air and passing through the air. He's averaging 21.5 carries per game, and he's getting nearly 8 targets a game. He owns a 21.5% team target share, and is literally on the field about 100% of the snaps. He's the safest play in the world, week in, week out, and you can't go wrong with Christian McCaffrey. He's got a high ceiling, high floor. Yeah, week 2 happened, but we'll give him a pass. It was on Thursday night. 45 points week 1, 30 points week 2, 33 points week 4, or week 3 he had 30 points, week 4 he had 33. He should be fine versus Jacksonville. I guess it's not a scary matchup as it looks on paper. He should be fine. So Christian McCaffrey is going to be pretty high owned, but safest play every single week. And I think Dalvin Cook's going to be high owned as well. But I want to talk about David Johnson. I think he's going to be pretty heavily owned as well, going up against Cincinnati, who just absolutely sucks versus the running back position this season. He's also only 7,500, so he's lower priced than some of the other top tier backs, which, David Johnson is a top tier back. He's just not on the best offense in the world. But it's an amazing matchup versus the Bengals, allowing the most points per game to running backs this season, which is nearly 40 points per game. And they're also 22nd DVOA versus the run, and they're also really struggling versus pass-catching running backs this season as well, which is one of David Johnson's specialties, as you see. 7 targets week 1. Yeah, week 2 he had 1 target, but 9 targets week 3, 11 targets week 4. He should smash in this game. Heavily involved in the passing game as well. Like I just said, there's going to be no Christian Kirk, so you'd expect him to be heavily involved again after he saw 11 targets last week, which earned him a massive 34% target share in that game. Also, another guy you don't have to worry about coming off the field, like Christian McCaffrey, as he saw 90% of the snaps last week. Chase Edmonds really isn't a big deal. Second highest Vegas total on the slate. The game's going to be played at a fast pace, and points will be scored, and there should be plenty of volume for David Johnson, probably about 20 touches. So he definitely makes a ton of sense this week going up against Cincinnati. I'm trying to refrain myself from saying, I like this guy. I'm going to love to play him, because this really isn't like a picks video. It's just me telling you he's going to be high owned. But you guys know, if you watch my other videos, I love David Johnson this week. So it makes a ton of sense. And he's going to be pretty high owned. Then the next guy is Zeke, 8,300. So he's coming in a bit cheaper than some of the other elite running backs, like Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara. So there is inherent value there. It's a great matchup versus the Packers, who are allowing the 3rd most points per game to running backs this season at 35.6 per game. They're also home favorites, which is a great correlation for running backs in DFS, because if they get a lead, they're going to grind the ball out, and they're at home, so that always helps as well. And Devontae Adams really helps that theory that we have, which we're running with. And he saw 7 targets last week, which helps boost his floor and ceiling. I know there's not going to be Smith, which is their star left tackle, but this is still an extremely solid offensive line all around, so I really don't have concerns there. And they're running the ball the 3rd most in the league in terms of their pass rush ratio. So that's another positive correlation going for Zeke. And they're also going to try and pound the rock with Zeke all game. I think he has success here. They're going to keep the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands as much as possible, and they're going to do that by killing the clock with just grinding Zeke out play after play. And I do think he should be able to find the end zone at least once or twice, maybe even thrice if we're lucky. And also, he's in the late game at 4:25. All the other games are at 1 o'clock and 4:05, so technically he's the late night hammer, and he should be able to get you in. Cash games, I should say. And then honorable mentions for this section, we have Dalvin Cook versus the Giants, Leonard Fournette versus the Panthers as well, and then Aaron Jones. I guess you could throw him in there as well. I think he can have some ownership with Jamal Williams being out. So that's it for the running backs. Let's talk about receivers now. And let's go all the way down here. Everyone's favorite value play this week, and possibly mine as well. It's Auden Tate, 3,500. Everyone's spending up for running backs this week, and they are doing that. And if they're going to be doing that, then that means they have to spend down a receiver this week. So the most obvious place to look is the new wide receiver 2 for the Bengals, Auden Tate. Bengals are throwing a lot, over 41 times per game. Problem is, Dalton is the one throwing them the ball. So that's the one thing stopping this offense right now. Well, I shouldn't say the one thing. The offensive line's also complete trash. But other than that, no, it's actually not a bad offense. You got good pieces. Auden Tate's not bad. Tyler Boyd's pretty good. John Ross was good. He's hurt now. And Joe Mixon is good as well. It's just Andy Dalton's not that great. I mean, he's fine, but the offensive line is complete trash, which really sucks for them. But yeah, they're throwing the ball a ton. He saw 10 targets week 3, 6 last week, operating as the wide receiver 3. And now with Ross out, look for him to get another consistent workload. I say that like he's a running back. I guess I should say target share. It's a great matchup versus Arizona. John Ross owned a 35% market share of the team's air yards, so there's a ton of room for Tate to step up and command some more of that. I believe he's at about 18 or 20% at the moment, so you'd look for that to boost up a little bit. And he's pretty much just free this week, so he's a plug and play for cash games. Maybe you want to fade him in GPPs because he's going to be high owned, but he pretty much unlocks your whole lineup. And this is going to be a fast-paced game and a high total, so he makes a ton of sense. And then I also want to talk about Hopkins and Julio. I believe they're both going to be high owned, but I mean they're going to carry ownership because it's the highest Vegas total game. They're obviously elite talents and good matchups, and I do think Hopkins will be the most popular between the two. But I think they're going to be higher owned in GPPs than they are in cash because people tend to take more risks in GPPs. And if you're playing one of those guys, it's going to sacrifice one of the high-end running backs, which are obviously always safer than a high-end receiver because, the running backs are always going to get the ball. Those high-end guys are going to see the ball 20 times. That's a guaranteed. Receivers, not so much. So I think in GPPs, people look to stack with, Watson, Hopkins combos, maybe Matt Ryan, Julio Jones. In cash games, I don't see too many people doing that. You want the stud running backs. So GPPs, I do think they'll be higher owned. But obviously they're great plays. It's just going to be hard to fit them for most people's roster construction this week. So the next I want to talk about is Larry Fitzgerald at 6K. So again, this is one of the higher Vegas totals of the slate. It's going to be played at a fast pace. Christian Kirk being out will give him quite the boost this week as Kirk leads the team in target share at 24%, with Fitz being second at 21%. He does own a 26% market share of the team's air yards, though, which is first, and he should be able to eat as the only main guy standing out there from the receiver group. I really expect that to his 26% market share of the air yards, possibly around 30% this week. So he's in pretty much a nice range this week where he doesn't break the bank at 6K, and he's one of the safest plays on the board in my opinion. He's also got upside as well. First 2 weeks, he was great, 28 points, then 18 points. Week 3 came down a little bit, 14 points, still got into the end zone. Last week, 9 points, not really what you're looking for, but I think he bounces back in a big way this week versus Cincinnati. A lot of people do too because he's going to be pretty high owned. And then next guy, Will Fuller. Everyone's talking about him. I'm talking about him as well. I loved him heading into the week. I loved him on Monday as soon as I saw his price. And he leads all players in air yards this season to not score a touchdown yet. So positive regression is coming. He leads the slate in ADOT at 17.5, which ADOT is average depth of target. He's 13th in air yards. The lack of pass rush should open up some down the field passes for the Texans, which would be a huge benefit to the Texans. And Will Fuller, who has yet to connect on that long touchdown. Week 1, he did have that really nice long ball versus the Saints, but obviously didn't get to the end zone, didn't do much with it. But I think we're in for a huge Deshaun Watson week, and I think that correlates with Will Fuller. This Atlanta secondary is not very good whatsoever. They got some injuries. It's the highest total on the slate at 50 points. They got a 27-point total. He's on the field a ton as well, so it's not like he's off the field, and we're lucky to get snaps. He played 99% of the snaps last week, which is obviously great. And he's averaging over 5 targets a game, which we will take all day at 4,500, and I think he's got insane upside in this game. And I really do think this is the week Will Fuller connects on a deep ball. I know I'm making this sound like a picks video, but I love Will Fuller this week, so I'm being very biased. He's going to be pretty high owned. I know a lot of people are talking about him, so I guess that makes him safer for cash games, and I honestly don't mind playing him in cash games. And then Tyler Eifert at the tight end position. He's the only guy I'm going to talk about for tight ends because I think he's going to be just so heavily owned this week. I mean, he's got that glaring 30-second green opponent rank thing right there, and a lot of people are going to flock right to that, which I don't blame them, going up against Arizona. Fantastic matchup. He's dirt cheap, and he's the lucky winner this week of getting to face the Cardinals. They're allowing 30 points per game to the tight end position. Actually, 29.3, but 30 sounds cooler. And they're allowing over 100 yards per game to tight ends and over 1.5 touchdowns per game. That is awful. I will say, though, they did cut their main coverage man, Swearinger, who has been giving up all these points, but I can't imagine his backup is much of an upgrade, and maybe he's even worse. So I think Tyler Eifert should be able to hit value here. I wouldn't say he smashes because he's not going to be too heavily involved, but John Ross is out, so that's going to be increased target share for Eifert. He has solid 5 targets 3 of the 4 weeks this season. The 1 week he didn't. It was against Buffalo, which is a tough matchup. I think he gets into the end zone here. He's probably going to get you about 30, 40 yards, and then probably get into the end zone. You're going to be pretty happy with that at 3,300, and he's going to be very chalky. Then for the defenses, there's obviously a number 1 defense this week. It's the Patriots going up against Washington. I mean, they've been absolutely insane this season. 10 points, 37 points, 11 points, 25 points, and they've had a cupcake schedule so far, but they are definitely doing what they should be doing. There's only a 14-point total implied against them this week, which is the lowest total on the main slate and of all the slates. Redskins are starting Colt McCoy, so all I got to say is good luck, Washington. Patriots are probably going to get you another 10-plus points this week. You can't bank on a touchdown every week, but I mean, they're racking up the sacks, they're racking up the turnovers, they're getting defensive touchdowns, they're not allowing a ton of yards. I don't see how the Redskins are going to move the ball in this game. I really don't. Then the Panthers, I think they're going to be popular as well. 2,600, and they've been great. People are going to look at game logs for defense, and they've been fine. 6 points, not the greatest, but past 2 weeks, 13 of 14. They're racking up the sacks. They're playing the Jags at home. It should be a low-scoring game. Should be at a pretty slow pace. The clock's, I bet this is probably one of the games that's going to end the quickest when you're looking at, some games are going to be like late third quarter, early fourth quarter. This game's probably going to be over. I think this game's going to go by pretty fast. Jags only have an 18-point implied total, and Panthers are favorites at home, so they make a ton of sense this week. I see a lot of people flocking to them. And then the Steelers come in at 2,100, and they are basically free this week. They allow you to load up at other positions. They happen to be in my lineup building video that I posted yesterday. Lamar Jackson has regressed after his cupcake schedule to start the season versus the Dolphins and Cardinals, so he has looked vulnerable. And the Steelers' defense has not been too bad. And they're playing at home. They've scored 0 points week 1 against New England. We'll give them a pass there. But after that, 7 points versus Seattle, 11 points versus the 49ers. And they did what they should have done versus Cincy. They got 8 sacks, forced a turnover, interception, only allowed 102 passing yards, only 73 rushing yards. That's pretty darn good. And they got 19 points on DraftKings. So 2,100. We will take it. I think they should be priced more along the 2,500, 2,700 price range. So 2,100, I'll take that. If they do pretty much anything and don't get 0, you'll be pretty happy at that price tag. And they allow you to fit guys in like McCaffrey, Hopkins, Watson, whatever you want to do. So anyway, guys, that's going to be it for this video. I hope it was helpful for you guys. This was not supposed to be a picks video. I mean, I know I kind of leaned into that a couple times, but it's just for you guys to be able to leverage who's going to be high owned, and then you can leverage that however which way you want to. Anyway, that's going to be it for the video. Remember to leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. I really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And yeah, I think that's going to be it. Hopefully my voice gets back to normal. I feel like I was really annoying. Not annoying, but my voice sounds like, Lois Griffin. But anyway, see you in the next video, and I wish you guys the best of luck heading into the weekend.